now Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. And Senator, I mean, do lawmakers, do they understand what's at risk right now? Do they understand how perilous it may, listen, I want smaller government, all those kind of things, but we're playing a serious game of chicken here.
Exactly. So I don't know that, I think we do know what we do have at risk right now, and we have to do our best to hang around it.
All right, so here's some of the things, and I'm not asking you to negotiate on TV, but worker requirements, for things like Medicare and food stamps, we've done that before. It was extraordinarily successful. I mean, this is part of the American dream, to be able to pull yourself up on bootstraps. Seems like low-hanging fruit to me. COVID clawback, that seems reasonable to me. Permitting reform. The solar energy companies want that. As in the wind farms, they can't build all these crazy rules that we have. And so spending caps, to me, it might be the only place I can see an issue.
Right. So I think that President Biden needs to realize that we have a deal on the table. He can fix this right now. And what we're asking for is very reasonable, some work requirements out of the situation. But it's really hard for him to negotiate this when he's out of town, out of the country as well. This doesn't work well when he's negotiating from a basement.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it'd say, hey, listen, I'm going to skip Papua New Guinea because of the urgency factor. I'm like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have gone in the first place.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about the timeline. If June 1st is the X date, right, when we run out of cash, according to Strategas, we must have a deal reached on Sunday. They say Sunday you get the deal reached. Between May 21st and 23rd, you draft the legislation. On 23rd, you post it for House members. On the 23rd and 25th, that's a 72-hour rule that Republicans insisted on. You're going to get that. Next Friday, the House will vote on it. Next Saturday, the House delivers the bill, gives it to the Senate. The Senate procedures begin. Next Tuesday after that, the Senate can pass it by June 1st, which would be that Thursday. So a very tight timeline, but essentially Wall Street is saying if it's not done by Sunday, things are going to start to get ugly.
Well, I hope Wall Street realizes that June 1st is not necessarily the X date.
Right.
Much like you asking the CFO, worst case scenario, that's what they've given us. I don't believe that's quite the case right now. I think there's other measures that she can do. In the meantime, we got to do it right. This is a fight that we need to have. I don't want to pass this debt onto my grandchildren. We spent $500 billion on interest last year. That's simply not sustainable. I think this is a fight we need to have. President Biden needs to realize that we're not going to blink.
Senator, talking about grandchildren, I got to segue a little bit to what's happening in Florida, because there's a report that Disney is going to take this major mammoth billion-dollar project and from Florida, the Orlando area, ship it off to California. Listen, I really think it's a huge mistake on Bob Iger's part. He was brought back to the company to save it, not to get into a fight with DeSantis. Feels like he's doubling down. They just had some ugly news on that Star Wars thing. That went down the tubes. They got a major downgrade on Wall Street today. How involved do you think Disney should be in these social issues?
Charles, my family grew up watching The Wonderful World of Disney every Sunday night. My kids had every Disney film on video. But now my own children are afraid to have their children watch a Disney show, that they're wrapping up very personal issues into candy. It's simply not right. Just go back to your business model. Go back to blocking and tackling. Go back to the basics. We want to be entertained. Give us some family entertainment.
I agree. By the way, Sunday nights used to be sort of melancholy, too, because as soon as it was gone off, back to school the next day. But it was when it came on, it was so fun. I got about 30 seconds, sir, and I want to just segue a little bit, because a member of the Federal Reserve today said that they need an independent review of what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. I think that's important. But also, you talked about the fact that what they've done, Janet Yellen in particular, hinting to the public that if you put your money with these large banks, it's okay. That's helped this bank deposit run. But also, apparently overnight, according to one report yesterday in that business meeting with the big bank leaders, she's talking about consolidation. I mean, there's a camp out there that would like to see America with fewer banks. What's your thoughts on that?
More regulations always lead to consolidations. The last thing that community banks want is more regulations. Community banks are the backbone of this economy, working with small businesses, being able to quickly flex into where the money needs to be spent. The last thing we need is more regulation. We know our customers. We pay attention to things like interest rate risk going forward as well, which Silicon Valley Republic Bank weren't doing.
Yes, and it's kind of good. You go to the local baseball game and you see each other. I mean, that's a community thing. It's personal, and it works. It's worked for so long. One of the reasons I think we're the greatest country in the world. Senator, thank you very much. Always appreciate it.
Thanks, Charles.
All right, folks. By the way, speaking of paying your bill.